the recording. I am audible and the screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Cool, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay. Did you have a question, Mark?
No, that was by accident.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay, no problem. Okay, so yeah, I think we'll wait for a couple of more minutes to start. For those of you who are joining in new, though I don't think there are, well, I'm expected to repeat this. I'm Chiti Arvind, a PhD student at ISA Tirupati and your TA for the course, for this basic course in ornithology. Today we'll be covering things done in week 5, which is basically acoustics. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you also have regarding acoustics, or we could start a discussion on any particular topic. And I'll also be covering a few things that our lab does in the field of avian acoustics today. So yeah, I think I'll just pull up the first question and we can see if others join in, though seems to be a little slow today. Okay, so birds can produce two sounds at the same time because they have two syrinxes or syringes. Their syrinx is in the trachea, their syrinx is in the bronchi, or they use other sources. Okay. Okay.
Ma'am, location wise, it's same, no, ma'am. Like, B is also good location wise, right?
Yeah, choose one option.
Ma'am, shouldn't you have specified the kind of birds? Like songbirds are the ones that have two syrinxes.
Well, only songbirds can produce two sounds, right? At the same time.
Yeah, well, you just said birds.
Well, sure,
Ma'am.
go for it. Songbirds.
We can't say that as two syrinxes, ma'am. The whole apparatus kind of stuff, ma'am. We
Yeah.
can't say it as two number, right?
Yeah, that's so what's your option, Lakshmi?
B, ma'am.
Okay, cool. So
Because it's the same part of anatomy which acts as syrinxes. We can't say it as two syrinxes, but the part of tracheas act as two syrinxes, ma'am. So it is only one organ, one part.
yeah, I think yeah, Lakshmi has explained it. So it's actually B. They have one syrinx that is found in the location in the trachea, and what this helps is actually it bifurcates, right? So there are two halves, the left and the right half. It's not just one half, and because it is in the trachea, they can control it separately. So the airflow is different, and this is known as lateralization, and so they can differentially control it with the left and the right muscles, right? So B is the correct answer, not A. It's one syrinx. And yes, sure, Govind, songbirds. Okay, next question. So the internote interval between two notes to be classified as a mini breath in birdsong is lesser than 2 milliseconds, lesser than 4 milliseconds, lesser than 1 millisecond, or lesser than 3 milliseconds. So do all of you know what a mini breath is?
Brief respite in the song.
Sorry?
A brief breath in the middle of the song.
Yeah, so if you look at songs with an instance of a mini breath, it will be separated. There will be two notes that are separated by a really short distance. Okay, so we're getting A, C. Okay. Any other guesses from anybody else? B. Sure, why not? We have 14 people. No, 12 people here. What about the others? What do you feel? Okay, A. C. So I think this is a paper by Sutherland. I can't remember the author, but in that they have defined mini breaths as when the internote interval is less than okay, when the internote interval is less than actually 2 milliseconds, that's when you would classify it as a mini breath. And if you look at a spectrogram with the notes of a song of any species, instances of mini breath are very, very apparent. You can just make annotations or boxes around the notes in a song, and you can note down the time difference, that is the end time of the first note and the begin time of the second note. If the interval between that is less than 2 milliseconds, it's classified as a mini breath. And this actually means that this is a dual sightings usage, where they are the birds are producing two sounds at the same time due to lateralization, right? So because of muscular control, they can produce two sounds at the same time, so that you can visually see it in a spectrogram. Sometimes you might miss, you will definitely miss out dual sightings usage if you just hear the song. So that's why people studying songs or any form of acoustics across any taxa need to visualize it using a spectrogram. Okay. Yes, Govind.
I kind of missed what you mentioned, that could you see
Which part?
about, you were explaining me about mini breaths, that their structure, I guess.
Yeah, so I was saying that a mini breath is when you have two notes in a song. So a song is comprised of a series of notes separated by a reasonable time from another set of songs. So sometimes how you classify a song can be between blurry lines, but I do think I have a slide on a song. Okay, maybe I'll explain it when we come to that slide. But if you see, if there are two notes produced in succession, but the internote interval, that is the time between two notes. Suppose one note is ending here and the other note starts here. the time between these two notes, which is the end time of note 1 and begin time of note 2, if that time is less than 2 milliseconds, it is classified as a mini breath. 2 milliseconds, it is a mini breath, and this also means that these notes have been produced due to dual sidings usage. Because of lateralization, they can produce two sounds at the same time. Sometimes you also do see overlapping notes. So one note is being produced and the other note is coming like this. So the end time of note 1 is after the begin time of note 2, if that makes sense.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
I've been having this question. Does the dual signing system in Songbird, does it work in conjunction with their air sac? I mean, even with the bifurcated siding system they have, they still need both lungs to breathe. But with their air sacs, they can.
With their air sacs, they can. Sorry, I actually don't. Yeah, I'm not really sure about what physiology part comes into play, but what is the question? Whether air sacs are responsible for this control?
Even with the dual siding system, they still need both lungs to breathe, right now. So they wouldn't be able to continue their songs for such a long period of time, even with the bifurcated siding system.
Yeah.
However, with the air sac, the air stays in their system for a much longer period of time. So I was wondering if their siding system works in conjunction with their air sac.
Oh, I'm not really sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure about that. Definitely what you mentioned, because of the air sacs and because of their respiratory system having the capacity to store the entire volume of air in their air sacs, does enable them to draw out larger quantities of oxygen. But if you see actually dual sidings usage, if you look at songs of birds that do have dual sidings usage, it's not it doesn't happen very often. Like every single note is not dual sidings. So if they're singing maybe let's say 8 songs in a minute, like some songs will have dual sidings usage, some songs will not, so they'll sing some other songs. So yes, definitely it is taxing on the bird, and dual sidings usage also is used as an indicator of like male quality, for example, if they're advertising or defending territories. So that's like a good
handicap principle.
Not really handicap principle, but it doesn't put the, well, in terms of physiology, yes, it puts the bird at a disadvantage, but probably they have like really good lung systems. So even so there's a lot of cultural learning that is involved in this dual sidings usage. So all individuals of a particular species are capable of dual sidings usage, but some of them don't use it, and I will cover that, hold that thought. I have a couple of slides, so we'll cover that in a paper ahead. But yeah, good point. Well, it's not a question, I think. Yeah, so does anyone want to describe what is sonation?
The varied,
I know that.
the varied songs, the song variety or the song portfolio of a bird. How, I mean, like the different kinds of songs they play, the variety of songs they can sing by a single species is sonation.
Okay. Amarnath says making sound without using vocalizations. Would you like to explain that further? Sound made by rapid contact of feather wings. Yes, that's an example of
like the club winged mannequin.
Yeah. So Amarnath, you are correct. It's actually making sounds without using vocalizations, non-saying sounds. Yes, correct. Clapping of wings. Yes, Govind.
And with regards to the club-wing mannequin, their feathers have these, they're called that because their feathers have these sort of hardened features with them. And when the male actually makes this sonation noise, they kind of rub these lovely feathers at very high speed.
Yeah. And that's exactly what, I don't know if this video has it. I'm just going to play it for everyone to have a look.
This species is called the red-capped manakin. Now, like the wire-tailed manakin, the feathers and bones, at least superficially, if you were to look at these, they would appear very normal to you.
Is the audio there?
But things get really interesting when you take a look at the behavior. This isn't a side-to-side hop like we saw with the clubwing or the wire-tail. He's actually flying between two perches. When a female comes down and this male gets ready to do his courtship display, he's going to assume the same posture. He gets parallel to the perch. He puts his head down and his rump up, with his rump towards the female. He starts to go back towards her, but instead of doing this little jig backwards, he does this magic slide.
Oops.
Behavior.
Sorry.
This isn't a side-to-side hop like we saw with the clubwing or the wire-tail. He's actually flying between two perches. When a female comes down and this male gets ready to do his courtship display, he's going to assume the same posture. He gets parallel to the perch. He puts his head down and his rump up, with his rump towards the female. He starts to go back towards her, but instead of doing this little jig backwards, he does this magic slide. So this is his version of the backward dance. He has a backward slide. Everything's the same except for the way he moves his feet. And if we watch him long enough, we will see that he will actually twist and go backwards too. So he still has those elements in his display, but he's got this new thing that he's doing, which is this slide. Now, let's move on to the sounds themselves. When he lands on his main perch, we see that it looks like he just sort of explodes. He just all of a sudden is doing this pop. With high speed, we can take another look at this, slow it way down, and here's what you see. In that instant of explosion, what he's doing is he's flaring his tail, he's taking his wings, and he's rubbing them down his tail feathers 3 times in a row. And it gives this clock, 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 which is so fast that we hear it as this little explosive sound. He's using feathers. He's kind of moving them more towards his back. The rate of these 3 different clocks is 84 cycles a second, which is twice as fast as he flies, and it's getting pretty darn fast. It's getting to kind of like hummingbird fast. Totally separate from these side-to-side displays, we have yet another wing sound incorporated in a display. And just like in the clubwing manakin, we have the sound in the backward dance. These are the claps, and you see him doing these claps here. So we have this fast movement making a wing sound in the context of a flight, and a sound. So we have suddenly gone from something that's fairly simple in the wire-tailed to something that's actually pretty complicated and needs some explanation.
All right. How do I stop this, pause this, questions? Yes, hang on. 1 second, where's my window gone? Oops, who's this? Roosbay, go ahead.
So I just wanted to check if all non-vocal sounds produced by birds would be sonations.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, drumming of a woodpecker.
Yeah, sure. I think that it should fall in the category of sonation because it is a mechanical noise.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be created by some kind of contact of the body parts itself. It could even be something external.
Yeah, as far as I am aware, It is any kind of mechanical noise, but to just verify that, I can look it up. But yeah, good question.
Sure.
Yeah. Yes, Mark.
So I think drumming of woodpeckers, that sound is produced by contact with the wood, right? So that's
Correct.
more percussionist sounds.
Sure.
But these were birds, I presume, because the primary feathers at the base of the plume is very hollow.
Right.
So this kind of sound is normally generated by flycatchers, zitting cisticolas. It's
Right.
very common. It's a very common phenomenon in smaller birds which generate this with contact. But it's generated because of the hollow of the primary feathers at the base of the plume.
Correct. Yes. And yes. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting observation of the cisticolas, because I haven't observed it, but yeah.
They do it in the air.
Right.
Cisticolas have their primary wings beating together and making the sound in the air.
Right. Okay. I'm not sure if they have these hard structures just like these mannequins that enable them to create these sounds, but the link that I've shared here is actually, so the scientist who was speaking out here is Kim Botswick, and the link out here actually tells us about her story of how she studied mannequins. So I would encourage everyone to look this up, and there's a nice evolution module on her work. So she first actually started with museum samples. She had never seen this bird before, and while she was looking at the samples and taking measurements, she noticed this kind of structure present in their wings. And then when she actually went on field, she observed this kind of mechanical noise produced by these clubtail mannequins. So yeah. And yeah, Govind.
What bird was it that you mentioned right now, ma'am?
Mark brought up cisticolas.
Could you
It's in the chat. I'll just put it again.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, Lakshmi.
Due to patching network, I lost out on what Roosbay asked. You also have
Yes, he was asking whether there is noise produced by woodpeckers would also be classified as sonation, and I think it is, because it's any kind of mechanical noise. It can either be produced by wing clapping or these special hard structures in the wings, or even like beaks clacking together, but they're not actually vocalizing, but it's just like the beaks opening and
waders,
closing.
ma'am. The crates and the waders, they also do that, no, ma'am.
Right. So
It's
yeah,
possible.
they have different ways. So I think drumming of a woodpecker would classify as sonation. Yeah.
What about pigeons, ma'am?
Pigeons, yeah, the flight of the pigeons, yeah, you do hear that flutter, and that is in fact I think true for even any of these other partridges or quails, sand grouse.
But in the pigeons, when they fly, they flutter. It isn't like they are sending some messages or any kind of news out of
They are-
it. It's just a physical.
They are sending a message.
Really?
Actually, it's an alarm call. When pigeons flutter, you hear that rather forceful
Now I was thinking only
sound
about it
effect.
as a physical phenomenon where, because of the air pressure, when they try to take off, that's what causes the sound. I didn't know that it is sent as an alarm or signal or something.
Yeah, well, pigeons are often gathered in several areas, right? So when one pigeon, since the incident takes off, they are designed to make such a noise so as to alert other pigeons.
Okay, so yeah, it's probably to distract predators that flutter, or it's an alarm call, as Govind mentions. I'm not really sure, but yeah, it could have a purpose. Okay.
But the sonation does have a purpose, no, ma'am. In birds, particularly, at least, I don't know about other things, but even sonation has a purpose in birds. Like is it either because it has purpose or it's just going about its daily business and causes a sound or something? Like vocalization has particular purposes like sending messages or for mating or for territorial.
Sure.
Is the sonation also does have all these kind of purposes, or it's just an evolutionary trait or something?
I am not really sure. But I'm assuming like any noise produced by a bird, I don't know if it's like accidental noises produced by birds also classify as sonation, but it's probably some habitual noises produced by birds that, yeah, do serve a purpose, definitely. But yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next question, which is where? Alright. Birds open their beaks out wide to sing so that low frequency sounds are transmitted stronger, higher frequency sounds are transmitted stronger to increase the amplitude of the call or to produce dual syrinx notes. C. Okay. C or D, okay.
I am tied between these two because the more it opens the beak, the more it has an opportunity to take in the breath, so that it can produce the successive two note calls or songs.
Right, okay.
But also when it opens the beak, it does amplitude, no ma'am. Like it does increase the volume of that call.
Okay.
So I'm tied between these
Ma'am,
two.
I'm tied between C or C. I mean, C for the same reason you open your mouth, it allows for greater amplitude, but also B, when you open your mouth, higher frequency sounds are transmitted more
Okay.
obstructions of the beak.
Okay. Sure. I have a bunch of guesses for C. What about the others? Ones who have just joined in? Okay, so actually the answer is B, because what actually opening the mouth does is it alters the resonant properties, right? So they sing with their mouth open to transmit songs of higher frequency with a stronger signal. So when a bird opens its bill a lot, it's able to produce and transmit stronger signals of higher frequency, whereas when the bill is opened really small, it can transmit lower frequency signals stronger. So if you have observed a particular songbird that sings at multiple frequencies, so a cool way to do this actually is to download this app. I'm not sure if you are aware that there is this app that you can download on the phone. It's called Spectral Audio Analyzer. So what you can do is it shows you a spectral view of all the ambient sounds. So if you have a bird singing, it's going to show you a spectrogram of the notes of the song, and you can also see of the frequency at which the bird is singing. So I think this is like a really cool app to check out at what frequencies different things are calling at. You can also do a lot of studies and see whether like where the ambient noise is falling, where vehicular noise is falling, where birds are singing, where humans are talking. Yes, Govan.
What about the app BirdNet?
BirdNet is, it shows you, it's basically for identifying bird species. There are quite a few bird species that are already fed into BirdNet. BirdNet is developed by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. You do see a spectrogram, but and you can also store calls. But this is for any noise, need not be just birds. So BirdNet uses an AI to detect bird species, and it will show you a set of possible outcomes of what the bird could be. But BirdNet does work, and it does work a lot in urban areas. In some areas, there are some species that have not yet been fed into the system. But it's quite good. So yes, definitely you can use BirdNet. I can Govind, if you can send a link, or I can also just send a link in the chat.
I have BirdNet, ma'am.
For the others. Yes, Lakshmi.
Even the Merlin, which is coupled with eBird, it also record bird sounds. Yeah, it also these days it also recognizes the birds, but it is primarily for identification purposes. But we can see easily see the spectrogram of all the noises as well as bird sound, and it also beautifully shows how the bird sound reacts against the background noise. It's just that if there is a harsh call of a honking, and there is already a bird is calling, it is superimposed and it is good. You could also see that Merlin from eBird. And one more thing, ma'am, I had a doubt with this frequency stuff, ma'am. I'm a bit confused. Can you just repeat how does this whole high frequency and low frequency stuff work? I mean,
how does it work?
No, I'm not able to visualize how opening of mouth leads to higher frequency. The amplification, the first three parts.
Yeah, it results, I don't know what the exact mechanics are, but if you notice a bird singing at a very low frequency, so if you're standing with the Spectral View app near a bird and recording, it's like a live recording of the bird. So as the bird is singing, you will see exactly what it is singing in this app. If the bird's beak is opened really small, you will see that the lower frequency songs or notes are the ones that are being transmitted. But when the minute the bird opens its mouth like wide, it is the higher frequency signals that are being transmitted, and they are also very strong. So strength of a signal can be seen based on brightness in any of these spectrogram apps. You'll usually have a scale from dark to light or dull to bright, and it's usually the brighter signal that is the stronger signal.
So frequency is the notes per time period, ma'am. I just want to get clarified.
What is frequency?
Yeah, that word frequency I get confused about.
Yeah,
frequency and amplification.
Yeah, so amplitude is basically loudness, and you can't really see amplitude that well in a spectrogram. Well, you can see if it is more bright or less bright, but ideally for amplitude you use the waveform of a song. So in the waveform you can see the amplitude. So I don't have an image of this. Maybe at the end of the class, if we have time, I'll show you how we can use Raven and show you some things in that. But
okay.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to know the basic difference between frequency and amplitude. Amplitude is a sound.
Yeah, amplitude is loudness,
volume,
and
volume
frequency is, well, whatever the formula for frequency is. But if you see a spectrogram, you will have time versus frequency.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Govind. Pitch.
Are
Okay.
there any birds that use echolocation?
Yes, there are birds. There are birds known as oilbirds, and also in India you have, I think, swiftlets.
Swiftlets use echolocation. I've heard of oilbirds. They live under caves and
Correct.
waterfalls, right?
Yeah.
But
Swiftlets
I don't know
also,
about.
yeah, swiftlets also, they nest in like caves.
They nest under structures, right?
Yeah, under structures you find them in urban structures also, but yeah, they if it's in a natural setting, they usually are found in caves.
Where are oil birds found? Which country?
Oil birds are found in I think it's South America.
Right, ma'am. I remember watching them
Where are oil birds?
under waterfalls.
I see. Yeah, oil birds are like pretty cool birds. Oil birds. I think they are found in South America. Yeah, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and Brazil. Yeah. Yes, Lakshmi?
Ma'am, I just got it. I forgot, ma'am. I just on a tangential part. Does any of the birds use any other instruments or tools or something to amplify their call or something, ma'am?
To
Just
amplify their call.
Like if it is like they are in the middle of a high vegetation area or like in the city or something where they might their calls might get or calls or songs might get masked. Is there any instances where they have used external tools or something, or strategically sitting and calling so that it can get amplified or something?
Yeah, no, they
Actually,
don't.
yes.
Yeah, go in.
Well, she asked for external methods of amplification. Right? I mentioned, I heard this in the lecture about using this parrot called Nakapo that the environment.
I'm sorry, not able to hear you.
Yeah, Govind, your voice is coming and fading actually. Okay, I'm going to wait for Govind to get back to better audio, but okay, so Govind says the kakapo. Yeah, I'm not sure really of altering or using mechanisms. I don't know what the kakapo does to yeah, I know it's from New Zealand, but I'm not sure what mechanism or external mechanism it uses to enhance its amplitude.
So Dr. Anand had mentioned that it kind of sits in a depression or a kind of hole in the mud, and then when it gives its booming kind of call, that is carried much further because it's of that depression that it sits in.
I see, but all of them do it, or only but some of them do it?
I guess only some of them. But again, I mean, the woodpecker, he mentioned that one woodpecker, I don't remember the name, which goes and drums on nettle.
Okay.
So again, that is the similar thing, right? I mean, even if it's sonation and not a vocal sound, it's again using material or some external material to amplify it.
Yeah, sure. I agree. But I don't think it will be able to produce that sound otherwise if it were not mechanical.
Not sure what it is in kakapo. I mean, I assumed it's a actual vocal sound, probably lower bass, that it,
Sure. Yeah, that could be.
It fills up its air sacs. It takes a couple of deep breaths to fill up its air sacs and then starts exhaling it all at once, which produces like a loud hoot, similar to what wood owls and all do.
Ma'am, what about the bellbirds, ma'am? The bellbirds, the loudest of the birds.
Yeah, I don't know what they do to
No,
produce their
I
sound.
have seen in the YouTube that it just opens its mouth wide, just like in this question you had asked. But how does it produces the biggest boom or biggest sound, loudest sound in the whole? Are there muscles? So I mean, like the syrinx is so well developed or something?
It's probably some anatomical feature. Bellbird, yeah.
Would you type it in?
Yes, Deepthi, I'm going to take your question. Deepthi? Okay. So, based on what Lakshmi had originally said, that due to do birds use any other tools to enhance their sounds if they are in a region that masks their sound? I'm not sure of anything in particular, but there are a huge number of urban-rural studies done between the same species, where they have found that birds in rural areas sing at a much lower frequency than birds in urban areas, and birds in urban areas have a frequency shift in their vocalizations because there is so much of anthropogenic noise that occupies the lower bandwidth. So they need to sing at a higher frequency for their songs to be, or vocalizations to be transmitted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, ma'am, I understand, ma'am.
So
I have seen the live example of it, ma'am. I have heard it, wherein there was this one pair of red-vented bulbul, which used to, now it is not there, but it used to visit my place. Like, there is a big tree in that, and we stay next to a railway station. So when one was in the one part of a tree, another was in the other bushes or something, it was calling out. But when the train came into the station with a loud honking noise, it totally stopped calling. And when the train passed and there was no noise, then it started calling. So it's like they have adapted to the urban thing. But then again, I also saw that I also heard that when I was recording it in Merlin or something, a few days later, they were calling actually higher than they used to call, so that they were able to reciprocate the calls in between them.
yeah, so I think, so Lakshmi, like you bring up two important points. So you have this acoustic niche partitioning happening in two ways. One is to change the timing at which the call occurs, which is to avoid timings where particular loud songs appear, and the other is to alter the frequency. So at the same time, like two calls of different frequencies don't mask each other. So
Okay,
yeah.
ma'am. What's the term you used, ma'am? The first part?
Acoustic niche partitioning.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Acoustic. Cool. I'm just going to go to the next question. So this is okay. So this is not a question. This is actually a study, which is it's a cool study done very recently. So I think this paper was from 2018 or 2019, and it actually talks about vocal learning in these particular species of birds known as the savanna sparrows. And savanna sparrows, song sparrows, white-crowned sparrows have been extensively studied for songs all over North America. And would anyone, well, there's not much information in this for you to guess what it could be, but basically it shows how these particular song sparrows learn their songs. So what do you know about vocal learning in songbirds up till now? Would someone like to take a stab at that? Yeah, Govind, go ahead.
Ma'am, could I?
Yeah.
There are three stages, ma'am. The first stage involves songbirds actually listening to one of their own species and actually the males would produce. And then the second stage involves practicing and coming up with different variations of a song. The third and final stage, no song is free and how we define this song, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good explanation.
Yeah, song crystallization happens when the birds is fully matured. Before that, there is this sub-song stage where the bird put into practice whatever they have learned from the male birds singing around them in the fledgling stage, and this sub-song stays until it crystallizes. I mean, the last part is crystallization where it has formed its own set of syllables and notes, which also relates to the entire population. That's how a bird learns. But
Yeah.
usually it learns from the male birds around it, because usually when it is growing up in the nest of nesting stage, it hears the male birds calling out, and they half of it is hardwired in them genetically. The other half is they learn from the surroundings, from the male birds and other situations in the population.
Okay. So I'm not sure as to how much of it is actually hardwired in them, because birds that are not exposed to any kind of ambient tutoring from any other sources don't actually sing any proper songs. So in the case of songbirds, it is believed that most of their songs are derived from vocal learning, which means that they have to listen to individuals around them to pick up their songs.
But suppose since they are not songbirds, but they do have songs with them, like they do have. Yeah,
Correct. That is for not songbirds. So yeah. So when we're talking about songbirds in particular, you have the two categories, right? Oscenes and suboscenes. And oscenes are the ones that are song learners, and suboscenes are the ones that are that have songs that are genetically hardwired. So those birds, even if they are not exposed to any external tutors, they sing the same song as the other adults sing. But if you don't expose Oscene songbirds to tutors, they will not actually sing any kind of song. They won't have a proper song or anything.
Okay, ma'am. Just a bit of small advice I wanted. I searched on the net, but I didn't get. Are there any studies going on or have been done on suboscenes and the oscenes or the song learners, and in the setup of a urban area, ma'am, in the anthropogenic made sounds or something? Are there any kind of studies in that area?
Yeah. There are lots of studies in that area, and I think one of the lectures that Robin covered on acoustics mentioned. I can't remember. I think it was a sparrow species that increased the amplitude of their calls and decreased it during COVID near the Golden Gate Bridge. So because of the anthropogenic noise not being there during the COVID period, the population of birds near the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, their frequency actually dropped.
Okay, are there any kind of papers which we can read? Because
that is a paper.
No, actually the thing is that it's like we need some kind of a account or some kind of a membership with some things to access those things, ma'am. I can only read the overview or preview of it, ma'am.
I think that paper is free. It's open access. If it's not, maybe just put it on the discussion forum. If you can find a link, I'll try and get it for you. And yeah, also
I'm just interested in urban birds, urban songbirds, how they are evolving according to anthropogenic sound.
Yeah, and also if you go to this Max Planck research group by Henrik Brum, he does a lot of urban anthropogenic noise. I can find out. I'll just send you the link of that. You can look up this lab and the work that they do, which is pretty cool. Where is this box gone? Okay, Honey says male birds teach fledglings. Yeah, sure, they are known as tutors. So yeah, animal communication and urban ecology, that's the lab. So yeah, you can check this up and you can check up the papers available in this lab, Lakshmi. Yeah, Govind?
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well, my question was, ma'am, what about open-ended learners, ma'am? Can open-ended learners have abnormal songs or isolated songs?
Abnormal songs. So how would you classify a normal versus abnormal song for an open-ended learner?
In normal cases, in normal songbirds, they have to learn from their tutors on how proper song should be there during their sensitive period, and through auditory feedback. And if they get their song, and if they don't learn this properly, or they somehow affect it this way, they come up with abnormal songs. Right? But open-ended learners, they don't have a crystallization period. They continue to learn sounds and songs throughout their lifetime. So, is it possible for them to have abnormal songs?
So then I think you have answered your own question. I mean, we cannot classify songs as abnormal or normal if they are open-ended learners, right? Because they'll keep on incorporating different vocalizations in their repertoire. So I don't think you can fix anything as normal or abnormal for open-ended learners. But for closed-ended learners, you can have songs that are not conforming to what normal songs are. And then that could be because of some learning impairment or something. That would be my guess.
Also, another question here. Do the male birds actually tutor the fledglings, or do the fledglings just listen?
Do the fledglings just?
Do the fledglings just pay attention and listen to the older male birds?
No.
Or do the male birds actually
Yeah, I think the males actively do come and tutor the fledglings, because I mean, even in the nest you can hear the males singing close by to the nest before they have actually fledged. But yes, fledglings do follow parents or relative males and learn from them. So I'm not sure whether there is a case of the tutor actually abandoning a fledgling or something. Yeah, good question though. There might be some studies on that. Might be worth looking that up.
Well, if the tutors do actively teach the fledgling, it has to be the parent or a relative, right?
Right, correct.
Because in a complete stranger would have any reason to teach younger boys. It would be like training competition, right, ma'am?
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're correct. And so there is a very interesting concept to what you have brought up. It's Lakshmi, I've just sent the link. I don't know if this will open or not, just let me know. So we don't know song learning periods or song learning windows of several bird species. So if they have actually learnt their songs from their parents, I think there was a slide on these micro dialects also. If they have actually learnt songs from their parents and the song learning window closes before they fledge, you can actually see where related individuals are, right? Because they have like certain signatures in their songs, and you can see where a son of a particular nest has migrated from the parental nest, right? But if the song learning window is still open during the after a male has fledged and set up his own territory during probably the first breeding season, you will see that their songs are more similar to their neighbors, because to avoid like neighbor conflict, you find neighbors sharing several components of their song between each other. So that's something even we are looking into. Yeah.
So what you're saying is, ma'am, if birds have their song learning period or sensitive period during their nest time, then they are likely to learn from relatives and their parents. But if their sensitive period continues after they have left the nest, after they have fledged, that is, their songs have more diversity.
Their songs have more diversity or are more similar to the individuals that are around them. Right? So they might just drop off the calls that they have learnt during when they were in their own nest. So you can also, like, the crystallization period will not have all the songs it has learned, but probably the songs that it has most recently learned. But it's probably open-ended learners that have of course, the widest repertoire. The duration of song learning window might lead to parent-offspring conflict. I'm also not sure about this. Saptarshi, would you like to maybe elaborate? Okay, till Saptarshi elaborates. So this basically out here in this figure, it's showing us 6 panels of different individuals of these savanna sparrows. And what these people did is that they broadcasted songs of a particular tutor on a loudspeaker in these territories. So, and then what they found was that the fledglings in this area, or the subjects, actually picked up the songs of these birds that were being broadcasted in whichever areas, right? And they found that the sensitive period was also particularly in a window, which was, I think, the yeah, sure, Saptarshi, you can go ahead and describe in the chat.
Ma'am, Sachinji had a long time had raised his hand, ma'am.
Oh, sorry, I think I missed that. Yeah, Sachin, do you have a question?
Actually, it was not a question, but I was just adding on to what Govind was mentioning. I had asked the same question to Dr. V.V. Robbins about sound crystallization from the seed or some bird has crystallizing. What will happen? He mentioned that that bird might be isolated and it might impact his normal life. But as I think you have rightly said, if there are chances of the song learning being open, it might just learn the song completely and it might just crystallize. Otherwise, there might be variation in the song of that bird with respect to their own subspecies or species.
Right. So what was the question? Sorry.
No, it was not a question.
Okay.
It was just an addition to what Govind was asking.
Okay.
I asked the same question earlier in V.V. Robbins' class.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
Ma'am, on the conflict part, I just wanted to ask, can this happen that a bird has fledged and it has grown up and it has songs crystallized? Does the baby bird, the next generation bird, competes with the previous generation bird during the breeding season, or it's like different, altogether 2 different times?
I mean, competes for what?
for females, female attention or something.
So it depends on.
Like already they are learning from a tutor.
So it depends on. So there are a lot of factors that play in, right? Are they pair bonded species or not, right? So if they are pair bonded species and have the same mate across multiple years, there is no competition despite them learning the same song. Where does the male move? Does the male move very far from the natal territory, or is he budding off the natal territory? What type of breeding system is it? Is it cooperative breeding? Is it solitary breeding? So there are a lot of things that that
So
can
there are
affect
chances of fledgling. There are chances of open-ended whatever one song learned say second generation bird to compete with their tutor. There are chances of it, right, ma'am?
I mean, I don't know of a particular species, but
Technically, theoretically, it can happen, right?
I mean, technically, a lot of things can happen. We can hypothesize, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, in regards to your question, I think like 90% of all birds are monogamous to an extent. So if that does happen, I'm sure it's like a very small instance, and in even those cases, there's probably an age difference that would apply.
That's what I wanted to know, if there is a Shishya Guru conflict, like, the one which is learning from the tutor. And,
Let's not get to anthropomorphize everything. That's fine. But Lakshmi, why don't you just look this up? If there are any papers regarding tutor-tutee conflict in song learning.
Yeah, sure, I'll try.
Yeah. Deepti, I'm not sure if you have a question. I'm guessing not. Govind.
I didn't quite clearly hear the point Sachin made. Could you just repeat it?
I was just saying that before the song crystallization, if the male parent just leaves, right, and then that bird or chick doesn't have any chance to crystallize the song, the bird might just be isolated because it might not learn how to attract the mate, or maybe defend the territory, or whatever the song types are there. Okay, so it might impact its life. It might get isolated. But otherwise, this is one part. The second part is, as Chitima mentioned, it could happen that if the song window or learning period is still open for that bird, if it's still able to learn the new things, it learns, suppose, by observing other birds of the same species, then it can still crystallize that song. Although it might just vary, like a dialect or sub-dialect or something like that, and it will just continue. These are the two paths that I learned from what Dr. Robin had mentioned.
But doesn't it depend on whether the bird can fledge or not? If the bird can fledge and is still has an open and is still sensitive to learning, then it wouldn't be a problem. But if the bird is unable to fledge, it can't leave its nest, so it might not be able to learn from another individual.
I think irrespective of learning, it's going to fledge, right? But I'm not.
Fledges, the sensitive period might get over, right?
If it is learning, but no, it's not going to learn all its songs in the nest. It is going to fledge and still be around the parent, because the parents do feed fledglings, right? They don't take 21 days to hatch and then stay in the nest for another 2 weeks and then just fly off. They are still fed by their parents. So song learning can be viewed as the evolution of arms race, and on this way it can lead to parent offspring conflict. I'm not really sure of this evolutionary arms race out here, because in evolutionary arms race, it is one is trying to outdo the other. So I don't think the parent is trying to outdo the next generation, or the next generation is trying to outdo the parent. So yeah, I'm not sure if there's competition, intergenerational competition. So yeah, to complete this particular slide, it basically shows that song learning does happen during by learning from individuals around them, and this was an experiment that was done in the wild, because usually all experiments are done in a lab. So yeah, so this is really crucial because a lot of acoustics experiments are done in laboratories with birds like zebra finches, or some Bengal finches, but most of these things we don't really know what's happening in the wild. So this was one of the quite a big study that kind of proved this old hypothesis. What are the orange bars, yellow bars and blue bars? They are just good that you brought this up, Harini. They are actually syllables, or a series of notes that are put together to form syllables that are copied between the tutee and the tutor. So this is the stimulus panels are actually the loudspeaker broadcasted calls, and the other bars at the bottoms are the ones that are highlighted to show the copied parts. So if you can see here, these three regions are copied by the tutee. Out here, these two regions are the ones that are copied by the tutee, but if you see this middle trill, it's different, right? So there are, and this initial part of the segment is different. So there are certain components of the song that are similar, not the entire song, but they do incorporate segments from stimuli that they hear around them, if that makes sense.
Okay, this brings the individualism in the song learned by a bird. Like, not all birds sing the same song. This is what happens in giving its own identity, ma'am.
Sorry, what?
A part of it is copied.
Sorry?
Only when a part of it is copied. If you see the slide,
Yeah.
then we can say that this is how individualism happens, where each bird has its own different take on a particular song or something, which is basically similar to the group of population, but it has its own identity.
Right,
That's
sure.
That's how it happens.
Sure, yeah, individual signatures. Amarnath, yeah, I'm actually moving the cursor on this slide. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not moving it on the PPT screen, which is, I don't really know why that's not coming up on my laptop.
Ma'am, can we get to next questions, ma'am? It's already 1 hour.
Yeah, don't worry, Lakshmi. I'm moving on. Okay, so what is the term used to describe the process by which birds learn their songs of their local dialect? Is it cultural transmission? Is it genetic inheritance? Is it vocal mimicry? Or is it habitat adaptation? I'm going to wait for more answers. Ningappa, do you have a question? Okay, sure. Yeah, that is known as cultural transmission. So that is the right answer. It's A. Yeah, thanks for the explanation, Lakshmi.
Doesn't cultural transmission happen via vocal mimicry?
No, I
vocal
think
mimicry.
yeah, vocal mimicry is a very broad term, and mimicry can be copying songs from any source. It is not by conspecifics. But when you have cultural transmission, it is songs that are transmitted between individuals of the same species. So that forms a dialect.
Ma'am, doesn't these open-ended learners which are known to have vocal mimicry types, don't they have local dialect or something of their own? Because even birds which are like known to have bigger repertoire of mimicking, they do have their own set of songs and calls also, no ma'am?
Yeah,
Apart
sure,
from
they
the,
can have dialects,
so
but that is not mimicry.
they
Right.
do have dialects. That's what I'm asking. The cultural transmission can also happen in open-ended learners, or is it only for the normal?
Yes, it can happen in any, like, it can happen in open-ended learners as well as closed-ended learners, surely. Yeah, can happen in both. So you can have signatures that are dialects, but you can have components that are mimicked from other species as well. Amarnath says, I would think mimicry should be of other species beyond their natural ability. Yeah, you are correct, Amarnath. Yeah, so mimicry is technically of heterospecifics or even any other anthropogenic noise.
But mimicry also does have that one bird mimics the other bird, no ma'am. So it's the same species, no? Here in the bird sense, mimicry means it's all about copying few notes or few syllables of the other birds. Ma'am, that's
Other
what,
birds, same species, different species?
Yeah, different species, I'm sorry, different species of birds.
Yeah, okay. So that doesn't make a dialect, right? Because we're talking about dialect in a species, not dialect across multiple species.
Okay, got it.
Is vocal mimicry and open-ended learners a concept that's restricted to songbirds and oscillates, or is it something that can be applied to other birds too? Like parrots they're not songbirds. They can't sing, but they have a massive repertoire too.
Yeah, they are open-ended. Yeah, they are open-ended learners, and you are correct. Like, you also have another group of birds that are known as hummingbirds, which also are open-ended learners and are not passeriform songbirds. So yeah, they can, especially like the parrot Cetaceae family, they can copy songs and they can mimic, and well, I'm sure everyone has heard of parrots copying.
Ma'am, I would like to have your thoughts on what Mark has said, ma'am.
Mimicry can't be in relation to conspecifics. Yeah, so usually you do have mimicry that is explicitly mentioned of by copying heterospecific calls.
Ma'am, but doesn't the tutor-pupil relationship is also some kind of...
That's not mimicry, that's learning. I mean, of course, mimicry is learning, but then you have like mimicry that is just for the moment. Like, you hear something and then it responds back, but it doesn't commit it to memory.
No, what I am
Mimicry is done by bird in its adulthood.
Sorry,
When the bird is an adult and it's an older individual, it learns to mimic calls for different reasons. Leptoparasitism or prey defense or something
basically,
else.
mimicry means it doesn't exactly copy the same song, but it does take some important highlights of it, no, ma'am. That's how a tutor teaches. A tutor takes some part of it and crystallizes it to have its own individual song. Both are same technically, no, ma'am.
So you're talking about...
I'm sorry, I will just repeat it again. in a mimicry, a bird like a drongo, which copies maybe a babbler or something, it takes not the exact, it doesn't copy exact song or call, but it takes a few parts of it. In the same way of listening, when it learns to start singing from its tutor.
I don't think tutor-tutee transmission of songs within the same species is known as mimicry.
Yes, ma'am. And that's what I mean, ma'am. In the same species, also like broad sense mimicry means copying some parts of the song, no, ma'am.
Well, that is probably the literal sense of to mimic, but in probably if you see a definition, it's
because that species is predisposed to sing in that tonation, in that amplitude, in that frequency. They are born with that. It's in some shape or form. Mimicry is something totally different. You don't associate it with young birds learning calls from their adults. Because a peacock cannot cannot mimic a partridge tomorrow or a francolin. Some species are born with some inherent tonations and the voice of their own, right? So it's got nothing to do with mimicry. Learning is different, mimicry is different.
Okay.
Actually, you could say that in relation, when it comes to song learning, it does use vocal mimicry for a limited period of time to learn a single kind of song, whereas other open-ended learners use vocal mimicry throughout their lives. Isn't that also possible?
wow.
No.
Now we are going in circles. Okay. Yeah,
All
Mark.
speculation. I don't think so. I think it's confusing what mimicry is only. The wrong understanding of what copying or imitating somebody is, as opposed to the species singing its own song.
Right. So I think you probably need to check what exactly is vocal mimicry in birds, and I mean, even in like human languages, like we are not mimicking each other, right? Just because you say the same thing and I say the same thing, I'm not mimicking you unless I'm like, I don't know, we're just getting down a rabbit hole with this.
Just one last doubt from my part, sorry about it. Why do parrots have such advanced vocal mimicking skills?
Yeah, because they have like a massive, huge vocal learning center. So it's all to do with the brain, and yeah, it's a lot of neurobiology. So that's why.
Right. The evolutionary purpose behind that, I mean, parrots are not songbirds, they don't sing, at least to my best knowledge. Do they use it for mating purposes, or do they use it?
They have a lot of cultures between parrots, and they have different communication strategies. I am not a cetaciform expert, but yeah, it is for communication, and a lot of vocal cues in cetaciforms have been classified, have behavioral significances. So yeah, it probably has some communication context and behavioral significance to each type. I think Saptarshi mentioned something. This is also a learning system, so you need a sender and a model and a receiver. I'm not sure what a model is, but sure. I'm going to move on, and actually the next slide was just to tell you a bit about Raven. So this is actually a freely available song, and Govind, do you have a question? Yes, Vedant, probably an hour. Okay. Raven Pro is this song analysis software. For anyone interested in acoustics, I would highly encourage you to download this. If we have a couple of minutes left at the end, I will share my screen and show you what the Raven interface looks like. This is freely available for anyone living in India, and you can just send out a mail to these folks at Cornell, and they'll share a serial number with you that you can access the software with. So a lot of us use it for sound analysis. You can draw out a lot of parameters, which I can show you later. Okay, so which of the following factors is most likely to influence the development of cultural dialects in bird songs? Most likely, right? You have to choose one option. Genetic variation within a species, the availability of resources in a given habitat, geographical barriers between populations, or the level of predation pressure in an area.
Isn't this your area of research, ma'am?
I mean, it can be anyone's area of research, but sure, yeah. I am currently studying something within this realm. Okay, so we have a couple of C's, one B. Resource, food, what? Where is the word? Availability of food resources.
Ma'am?
Yeah.
What is in your study, what bird species do you focus on?
I have a couple of slides on that. I'm going to cover that at the end.
No spoilers, huh?
No spoilers. Otherwise, everyone's going to be sitting and Googling.
I know what you're working on.
It's okay, Lakshmi. Thanks.
Sure, like it.
Yeah, we're going to do a couple of slides on that towards the end. Okay, so bunch of C's, some A. Okay, others? Passive listeners? Okay. C-A. So, not sure between A and C. Yeah, sure. Okay, so well, the most likely parameter is probably geographical barriers. But if you have geographical barriers, then it is likely to also prevent dispersal, and prevention of dispersal means that there is some degree of genetic isolation, but even if there is like one stray bird that is able to disperse across this barrier or whatever, you will still have gene flow, but you won't have you will still have distinct songs. They might be genetically quite similar, but they might have distinct songs because they are likely to pick up songs from the area that they are found in. So again, it also depends on the learning period, how much does an individual disperse before the learning period, after the learning period, are they open-ended learners, are they closed-ended learners? So all these things will come into play. Okay, I'm just gonna go to the next question. In which region of the bird's brain are neural circuits responsible for song learning and production located? Is it the cerebellum? Is it the thalamus? Is it the hypothalamus? Or is it the basal ganglia?
Ma'am, the hypothalamus is the forebrain, right, ma'am?
No, ma'am. Actually, I opinionated C because of anthropogenizing it, ma'am. In humans, hypothalamus is the part where we retain what we learn temporarily, and then when it goes, when it wants to be a permanent learning, it goes back to cerebellum. First we learn, and the learning gets registered in hypothalamus, and when it has to be like a permanent learning, then it goes back to cerebellum once from hypothalamus. That's how it works in humans, but I'm not sure of birds. So
Yeah, I actually had a figure for this, but it's not there in this slide. Yeah, so the answer actually is basal ganglia, because you have this area X and everything in the basal ganglia, and that is the area that is responsible for song learning and production. So I'll probably get an image and we can discuss this further later. Okay, next question. What is the purpose of the sensory motor phase of birdsong development? Is it to refine and perfect the bird song? Is it to create new variations of the song? Is it to develop the bird's sense of hearing? Or is it to establish the bird's territorial boundaries?
ma'am, refining and perfecting the song is called crystallization, ma'am. The part A is actually what happens in song crystallization, right?
I think crystallization of the song is actually perfected.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear you, Govind.
I think crystallization is the final part. A is the process of getting to that. That's the sensory motor.
That's what the crystallization happens when it is perfect and it has attained the range it has to be, the type it has to be known.
Well, I would say crystallization is, I would say A is refining and perfecting the bird song. That is several sub-songs that the bird develops, and sensory motor phase is A, as in you refine, you develop and refine several variations of the ideal song that you have in your mind, and crystallization is actually choosing which variation you take as your song. Right?
Yeah, so actually the correct answer is A, because the sensory motor phase is where you are doing a lot of refinements to the song. You're not creating new variations, but you're practicing basically whatever you have heard. To perfect via auditory feedback. Actually, I'm going to just put the next slide because that's a slide that covers all this. So you have this is from Wikipedia. So you have birds that have different song learning periods, right? And we have discussed several of these. Does anyone want to take a stab at explaining this?
I think we already explained this part just a few days ago.
Yeah, exactly. So somebody else who has not talked would like to explain this. Okay. Not. So I'm just going to go through these just briefly once more. So if you can see in seasonal species, they have an entire year to perfect their song, and it gets crystallized only after a year. So it is born in spring and the song is crystallized again during spring, right? So by the first breeding season, it gets crystallized. Now for age limited learners, you have the sensory phase that extends from 0 to 60 days, then that overlaps with the sensory motor phase where they are trying to perfect their song, and then after 90 days, that's it, the window is closed, it's a crystallized song, and that's the song that they sing throughout their life. And for open-ended learners, they go through multiple phases of sensory motor and crystallized phases. It's just an ongoing process. So if you can see out here, the crystallized song is overlapping with the sensory phase, right? That just shows that they are always open to learning. There is absolutely no particular point where they stop learning. So even if you feed them with more songs throughout their life, they will continue to pick up and incorporate components of that song. Okay, so next question. Which of the following is not a type of song produced by male birds during the breeding season? Okay, between the singer and the song, which one is under selection pressure? Sorry, I'm really confused. We are... Okay, let's just complete this. Courtship songs, aggressive songs, territorial songs, or parental songs. I'm not quite sure, Saptarshi, what do you mean?
Ma'am, could it be said that songbirds are intelligent birds?
Tricky, touchy topic. I think the... Hang on, Lakshmi.
Yeah.
I think the term intelligence is again very, very subjective. How do you test how intelligent a bird is, right? It's all... Even like in humans, how do you test how intelligent a human is, right? You have these IQ tests and everything, but that's based on a certain number of parameters and everything, but I don't think you can quantify intelligence based on...
Could it be said that songbirds have a high cognitive capacity?
This would need to be validated with cognition tests. And also, like, there are other birds like raptors. There is this book by Nathan Emery known as, I think, Bird Brains. Please do read it. I think some of the most intelligent birds are, in fact, falcons, crows, and I can't remember. Are they like toucans or parrots or something like that? Yeah.
I know crows are the smartest birds, ma'am.
Yeah.
They use it tools.
Yeah, let me... Yeah, so there's like tool use and everything.
And the reason I chose, I brought this up was because songbirds have they songs, right, ma'am? They have the ability to learn.
Yeah, they have the ability to learn, but like I'm not sure as to why falcons, or I might be getting the taxa wrong, are found to be more intelligent based on certain tests or whatever.
Excuse
But
me, ma'am.
yes, Lakshmi.
May I know why, excuse me, Mark sir, may I know why you think that this question is incorrect? Because I have my own doubts. Still, I want to know.
This question is very subjective because there are birds that there are males that sing courtship songs even when the female is on incubating and the pair has chicks. They sort of start copulating during that time as well, and they go on to the second clutch. There are birds that have aggressive songs because they kind of breed in high density population areas. There are birds that have territorial songs as well during breeding. And of course parental songs to wake up the chicks. So this whole question, I don't know, if there's no specific species mentioned, then this question itself it's very highly subjective.
Even koels, males and females both have aggressive songs during the breeding time when they are about to hatch or place a egg on its parent site or something, ma'am. I also have doubt. All these 4 songs, courtship songs, female might not sing, but the other 3 can happen even in female part, no, ma'am.
The other 3 can happen in?
But other 3 can also be sung by females, no, ma'am.
But that is not the question. The question is which of the following not a type of song produced by male birds during breeding season. So none of these are songs that are not produced by male birds during breeding season. All of these songs are produced by male birds during breeding season, depending on the species that one is talking about.
No, maybe there should have been a 5th option of none of the above or all of the above, maybe, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't think you do have parental songs sung during the breeding season. I mean, not during the breeding season, right? Because the parental. Because the parent
focus on the breeding part, ma'am, in the question.
Yeah, so during the breeding part, it's like before the chicks hatch, right? So after the chicks hatch, it is like they are incubating, and then you will have the parental songs after the chicks have hatched.
Ma'am, what exactly are parental songs? I've heard of the other 3 songs.
Well, there are certain recognitions that happen between chick and parent. So there are certain species, as Mark did mention, species specific. There are species that sing songs that are recognized by the chicks, or so that they can. There is a chick parental recognition.
Aren't the songs sung by the parent to the chick the song that the chick needs to learn?
No, that's actually different. That doesn't form a part of the adult repertoire. They are like certain wobbling calls that happen when the chick is in the nest by the parent. Sure, begging call is by the chick, but then parents also do have a kind of vocalization. Yes, Roosbay, you have a question.
Song, ma'am?
Sorry?
Can the parental vocalizations to the chick actually be considered a song? I mean,
I'm not sure if there are studies that have shown that song to be incorporated, but it doesn't really sound like a song, it's more like a wobble.
Because my doubt was parental song.
Sorry, I can't really hear you, Govind.
My doubt was if there is a song sung by the parent, the chick might accidentally learn that song and copy that song instead of the actual song it needs to.
Well, that's why you have the sensory motor phase, right? You have a sensory phase where you hear everything, and in the sensory motor phase, you perfect the songs that you need to sing. Of course, you are still listening to individuals around them, so they do drop a lot of songs.
I had a question about that graph that you showed.
Yeah, the previous one?
Yeah. My question basically was, I can understand instances where the sensory and the motor sensory phases are overlapping.
Right.
But why is there a gap between those phases in the first graph? I mean, why would the sensory phase stop and there be a pause and then the sensory phase?
Yeah, good point. I think this is just a matter of illustration. Okay. I think it's just to separate, showing that it is really like a long phase, and then the crystallization is happening just a year, almost like an entire year after the individual was born.
Okay, I had asked a very similar question, or rather the very same question, even about the graphs that Dr. Jain showed, but I don't know, maybe she didn't really see my question.
Okay, what was the question?
There, the same question, why there was a graph where there were so many big pauses between the two phases, because I would assume that if it's not overlapping, then the previous phase continues till the next starts.
Yes, ideally, yes. Yeah, there wouldn't be it's probably also because maybe there is a gap before they actually kind of sing. So the sensory phase is where they absorb all the information, but they actually start singing only during fall.
But so, that would assume that they stop learning in between, or stop listening and absorbing the
sure.
calls.
Yeah, sure. And you would assume that there are songs always heard unless the birds very seasonally sing. That could be my only guess.
Yeah.
Ma'am, just to add, just to ask what Rusbeji had asked. These are all illustrations made by us now, ma'am. Like, it's like we can't exactly say that the overlap, if there is a big gap between these two things, it doesn't exactly it doesn't exactly mean that the bird is silent or something. It's what we understand, it's how we illustrate things.
Yeah, I'm sure actually all these vocal learning things have been done in the lab with real birds that have electrodes stuck in their brains in different areas. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought that...
It's not by studies in the wild, no.
No, but what I felt was the second part, the second slide, the lower part is what actually much more closer to reality, in the sense the learning of the word doesn't exactly stop and start or something. It's ongoing process. That's what
sure. But I think the difference between the two is just to show that there are species that actually have a crystallized song, not in the year in which they are born, but the next year.
So they literally like they are mute or something. They don't have any kind of.
They don't. No, they do sing. So that's happening in the sensory motor period, right? They do sing, but it's not crystallized. So they probably don't set up territories till the next year. So a first year bird sets up a territory, but in probably these species, like they set up a territory, again it's species specific.
But still they sing, but still there's even if there is a gap between this, they still have vocal singing and stuff going on.
Yeah, they are singing during the sensory motor phase. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just go to the next question.
What's the answer to the previous one, ma'am?
Yeah, it's actually D. Yeah. So, which of the following is true of the relationship between the frequency of birdsong and the size of the bird producing the song? There is a direct relationship with larger birds producing higher frequency songs. There is an inverse relationship with larger birds producing lower frequency songs. There is no relationship between the size of a bird and the frequency of its song. And the relationship between size and frequency is highly variable amongst different bird species.
Isn't option A and B similar?
Sorry?
Isn't option A and option B kind of similar? Inverse relationship between larger birds and lower frequency songs, which mean
larger birds and higher frequency songs, and then inverse relationship between larger birds producing lower frequency songs.
I don't think there is any relationship between the quality of the song and the bird size, ma'am.
Quality of the song? Here we're just talking about frequency and size.
I'm sorry, that's what, I'm sorry. I meant that the frequency of the song and the size of the bird. I don't think there is any kind of a relationship. Small birds can have high frequency songs and large birds can have So it's not about the size, it's about how developed the syringes are and how they articulate it when moving the beaks or something.
Okay,
So I might
sure.
see is the answer.
Sure.
But always all the rules have exceptions, so I'm a bit confused between C and D.
Sure. So we're talking about like a general trend, right? We're talking about a general trend, and let's talk about across species, not within the same species. Because within a species, you might not have much variation that is significantly different.
If an inverse relationship between larger birds and lower frequency sounds would mean that larger birds do not have a lesser tendency to have lower frequency, right now?
What? No. What? Sorry? Inverse relationship means larger birds produce lower frequency sounds. So the larger the bird, the lower the frequency. Or is the statement confusing? So the answer is actually B, because larger birds do produce low frequency sounds. So the larger the bird is, the lower the frequency produced by the bird. So body size and frequency are inversely related, if that makes sense. In a general trend. Depends on birds under, so this is across taxa. So if you look at across taxa, you will find that larger has this bird been, no, not a certain study based on a certain species, but across species, body size is related to, is inversely proportionate to frequency produced by the bird. So larger body size, aren't female birds attracted by higher frequency songs? No, that's not true. That's not true. Or is it higher bandwidth? So you can have larger bandwidth or lesser bandwidth, but that frequency bandwidth range can lie within high frequency or low frequency. But if it comprises of a large high and low frequency, then that constitutes like a larger bandwidth. But yeah, then that becomes again species specific. But as a general trend in birds, larger birds produce lower frequency sounds. And there are a lot of like meta-analysis studies or phylogenetic studies across several different taxa that shows this. So within a species, there is very less variation in body size that can be attributed to frequency. But I'm sure there are also like within species studies as well. I'm sure there are. Yeah, I can like look that up. And also like body size and body mass is usually taken as a proxy. So when we measure mass also like within a species, it can be highly variable, because within an individual itself like size can vary a lot, right? Because if it is eaten, if it is not eaten, so I don't know if such minute fluctuations in body mass can produce like variations. Okay, so I'm just going to move to the next question. There are no more questions. I'm going to discuss a little bit about the research that is done by our lab on acoustics. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions. There's just a bunch of slides, and if we still have more time, I can show you what is how Raven works. So now actually what is a dialect? So this is like the simplest definition of what a dialect is, and this is taken from a really cool paper by Slavakun and Smith. And what you see out here in this panel, let me get the mouse. Yeah, what you see in this panel A is actually a spectrogram which basically has time on the x-axis and frequency on the y-axis. Now this is a song, and this song has 4 notes, right? Now if you compare panel B to panel A, you can see that the first note is flipped. That means that it is not the same dialect, right? If you compare panel C to panel A, it has an extra note in it, so it is not the same dialect because it has a new component in it. And if you see panel D is comparing in comparison to panel A, you can see that there is a time shift in the frequency bandwidth, right? So it has shifted from a higher frequency to a lower frequency, and this constitutes acoustic variation, and it is not a different dialect, right? So as Lakshmi had brought up initially, you can have variations in the acoustic bandwidth based on like anthropogenic noise. They are singing higher or they are singing lower in the same area itself. So this is a very, very basic definition of what a dialect is. So a little bit about parts of a song. Where is the audio clip of this? Okay, that has vanished. So this is the bird that several of us in the lab study. This is a white-bellied sholakili. And here we have color banded birds. So we have a metal ring on the left leg and a color ring on the right leg. If you can see, this is a yellow colored ring. The metal ring is aluminium. And this is a song of the sholakili. Now if you can see, the song has several notes. So when we study this is an image from the software known as Raven. We do these things known as annotations. And annotations are basically drawing time and frequency bound boxes across a note. So this has about over like 12 note types. And
excuse me, ma'am, can you just repeat? I lost it. Can you just repeat it again after the color band, what you said?
Yeah, I just said that this is a spectrogram of the song of a sholakili. So this is like the white-bellied sholakili shown in the picture out here, and you have multiple notes in a song, and you have annotations. So now these annotations, if we look at it without this, so if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you see 5 and 6, they are actually 2 notes that are overlapping, right? So what is this?
The dual syringes. How that work, right, ma'am?
Right, correct. So this is like a dual syrinx use because they are producing 2 notes at internote interval that is less than 2 milliseconds. So you have some instances of dual syrinx usage in the notes of the song. Not all of these notes are dual syrinx usage. So right, you have certain instances. So when you do analysis, you have to do annotations, and you try and annotate every note individually. But for analysis purposes, we annotate these dual syrinx notes together, and we make a note of it. So how many instances have multiple notes overlapping each other, right? So where are these birds found? These birds are found in the Shola Sky Islands. So here you have the Shola Sky Islands of the Western Ghats highlighted in this map out here. It is found across Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala, also little part of Goa. But the particular bird in focus is the Sholakili. So we have 3 species of Sholakili found in the Western Ghats. You have the Nilgiri Sholakili, the white-bellied Sholakili, and the Sholakili ashambuensis, which is the Ashambu Sholakili. And these Sholakilis are been genetically distinct from each other based on these ancient geographic barriers, which is the Palghat Gap and the Shenkota Gap. So above the Palghat Gap, you have the Nilgiri Sholakili. Below the Palghat Gap and between the Shenkota Gap, you have the white-bellied Sholakili. And below the Shenkota Gap, you have the Ashambu Sholakili. So Robin and Chetna, another student, Chetna Purushottam, looked at songs of the Sholakili across in various populations. So out here, just to highlight, they took 3 populations of Sholakili. One from, so the gap is not habitat fragmentation. No, it is ancient geographic barrier. So the Palghat Gap is huge. If you drive from Ooty to Kodaikanal, between both these areas, between the Nilgiris and the Annamalai Palani, you are like literally driving through a geographical gap. Yeah, it's not habitat fragmentation, it's a geographical divide. So when they looked at the acoustic properties of songs in these 3 populations, so these 3 populations, one is from Ooty, which is another species altogether, and the 2 species below the Palghat Gap are, 2 populations below the Palghat Gap are the same species. So I've just highlighted them in different colors. And when they looked at the acoustic properties, which is basically spectral variables of time, frequency, energy, etc., they did this thing known as a it's called a discriminant functional analysis, which is, you don't need to get into details of this, but it basically shows how the acoustic properties are clustering, right? So now again, let's not get into the stats behind it. We see that the Ooty population, highlighted in blue, clusters quite distinctly from the red and the green, which is the Nilgiri Sholakili is different, quite different in acoustic properties from the white-bellied Sholakili. But within the white-bellied Sholakili itself, you see that the easternmost population in green is a little bit different from the westernmost population in the left, right? So that's like interesting. So what they went on to look at was also the presence of complex vocal mechanisms. So as I mentioned earlier, this is nothing but dual syrinx usage, and it is taken as instances of notes separated by less than 2 milliseconds, right? So you have a song above of the Sholakili without complex vocal mechanisms. See, all the notes are like really distinct, and then you have a song with complex vocal mechanisms present below. And what they actually saw, I'm just highlighting these 2 populations, that the presence of complex vocal mechanisms in the west was much higher, proportion of complex vocal mechanisms per song was much higher in the west as compared to the east. And this is what we find is like really exciting, and we have further research happening in this area. So that's a little bit on what our lab does.
What could be the reason for that higher variety and the trends?
Well, we don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out. We don't know. I mean, it's they're definitely the same species, but why is one species? You can tell me. Tell me, what do you think?
Maybe the habitat there, ma'am, like the environment around in which it is living, it can have a profound effect on it, ma'am.
Complex.
Actually,
yeah.
Could I add, ma'am?
Yeah.
Well, I've been to Kodaikanal, ma'am, so I know what it's like. It's a lot more urbanized. It has a lot more people. So I would say it's to do with more untouched habitat and diversity in the west.
Okay, but actually we are not talking about differences in frequency. So I can completely understand your point if you're talking about like frequency shift or anthropogenic noise. But it's presence of these certain structures in the song. It's present in the east but not in the west. Right? And this is not defined by the spectral properties.
Can this be cause of genetic isolation, ma'am? I mean, these two are in the same place, but they are having some kind of a gap.
Yeah, so
it can be a genetic isolation also, ma'am.
Sure,
Isolated.
Genetic isolation.
And also anthropogenic factors can affect in other ways, like the lower population one side can lead to different songs.
Lower population, less number of individuals?
Yeah, less differences in population in one side, the Kodaikanal region, due to the native people and habitat, that could in turn affect their songs.
Sure, yeah.
How about, is there an elevation difference between these two regions?
Good question. Both are roughly 1,900 meters above sea level. So 1,900 to let's say 1,700 above.
Okay, meaning there's not much of a difference that we can see in the elevation of these two regions, right? Both may be similar. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, correct.
One aspect that comes to my mind is whether they are trying to distinguish themselves from the other similar complex song making species or something. Are there any species which produce some complex structure of song?
Yeah, interesting point. Actually, the community structure is quite similar. So you have, so these are Shola forest species, and the community of Shola species is same on both the sides.
Okay.
Can this be some kind of intermediate? I felt that isolation.
Sorry, what?
I felt at first that it was kind of a genetic isolation and some few characteristics which a particular group developed over a course of time when they were isolated or something. But it is not such a huge area that one bird can't fly away and go to the other side.
Yeah. So that's a good point that you brought up, like dispersal distances. So so it's unlikely that a bird from red area goes to the green area. So Harini asked what is GHRL. GHRL is very close to Valparai. Yeah, that's probably the closest place, city that.
She's asking what is GHRL?
GHRL. Yeah, it's Grass Hills National Park, which is close to Valparai.
Why can't dispersion can't happen, ma'am?
Sorry?
What's stopping them from dispersion, ma'am?
Oh, this is like 60 kilometers. This bird can't fly 60 kilometers across mountains and barriers.
Isn't there greater habitat fragmentation in that area, especially in the Kodaikanal region?
Yes, there is habitat fragmentation. There are a lot of plantations.
That's also a reason, right, ma'am, for dispersal being an issue.
Of one individual across multiple individuals, yes, there might be dispersal, but one individual actually flying from one end to the other end is, that's not possible.
I didn't mean dispersion in one or something, ma'am. I just said a small part of the population might have dispersed, ma'am. We don't know how birds, in the hunt for prey or in the hunt of, in search of food, they can have a small part of it can have over to the side and
that's a really good question, Lakshmi. So you need to take into account like range sizes of the species, which is really tiny in comparison to the location between these two.
Because I feel that the below one which has developed that special structures, it might be because this red one there was a small population movement from the red side to the green side over the course of time due to anthropogenic interactions, fragmentation of a habitat or something, it made easy for them to go over that side, and they might have developed their own variation.
Right.
That happened.
Yeah, sure. That could be a reason. Once again, Govind, I'm just going to take questions from the chat. We are already over time also. What is the sample size of individuals showing this distinct differentiation in the songs in East and the West? I'm not really sure. You can probably look up this paper, but it was... it's probably like over 1,000 songs or something. But also to remember, this is a proportion, so it's number of complex vocal mechanisms per song. And also the Eastern population does have a proportion of CVMs. They do have complex vocal mechanisms present, but it's just not that common. Is it due to allopatric speciation? So it's the same species. So it is the white-bellied cholakili across the east and the west. It's not a different species, well, at least yet. So yeah, how many individuals is this consistent with? So this is actually a sample size across multiple individuals. So I think they had about 20 to 30 individuals or so, and multiple songs per individual as well. So yeah, we will be coming up with some papers soon regarding minimum number of songs to capture song diversity.
Like, so for example, if you have zebra finches and you have 4 generations that are documented, almost every generation has something unique in their song.
Correct.
So this has to be the same, this differentiated song has to be common amongst many individuals for there to be some kind of pattern that one is allocating.
Yes.
And it has to be consistent over a large area, over many individuals. It has to be consistent over time also. Otherwise, variations of song like this are often seen.
Sure, but I think they have done an iteration of the number of songs, so it is a large enough sample size to show a difference. I mean, if there are like thousands and thousands of songs that have been annotated, even at a particular time point, you can see that there are differences in the proportion of presence of CVMs. I understand you can get an instance where just by chance this population we have not recorded songs consisting of CVMs, and that's why it is showing up like this in the graph, right? Yeah, so it is a sizable number of songs that have been recorded per individual and across multiple individuals within a population.
But how do you guys, how did they decide what sample size to work, ma'am?
So you can have like, well, that's a good question that you could probably ask Robin, but at least for like repertoire level studies, you draw an accumulation curve, right? And you keep on analyzing songs and number of notes till it reaches a point where there are no new note types, right? So you know in X amount of time I have captured X% of the bird's repertoire, which is sufficient enough for me to do my analysis.
Ma'am, here actually I beg to differ here, ma'am. Like each and every bird goes through, songbird goes through song sub-song level and then goes through song crystallization, ma'am. So if you don't have the complete populations audio recorded and going through it, you can never say that you have reached that saturation point where you have you have heard all the variations, ma'am.
Sure, for open-ended learners, you can never have a cap. But then you can never study anything in science because you can never sample the entire population.
No, ma'am, I'm not talking about open-ended one. I'm talking about the closed.
Even closed-ended learners, you can never in the wild, in experiments in studies in the wild, you can never sample an entire population across an entire lifetime of an individual, right? That is like gold standard. Like we say reproductive fitness. Reproductive fitness of a bird A is better than bird B, right? Now what would you need to do? You would need to study the bird from life to death, right? Of the species, and if the bird is in the wild, it's probably difficult for it to be tracked, right? But you have a general trend that you can extrapolate your answers to, right?
Okay, because I got this idea because I felt that after some n number of generations, the red one can show the dual note thing like the green one, no ma'am.
Okay,
After
shall I tell you something cool?
Yes, ma'am. Tell ma'am.
Yeah, so actually we have checked songs that are 20 years old, right? We have compared songs across 20 years or at least like 15 years, and we have seen that in spectral properties they don't change.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah.
Ma'am,
Yes, Govind, last question and then we close this.
what was it you just mentioned right now?
What?
What was this cool factor you just...
I'm going to tell you to check the video which is recorded.
Ma'am, it's related to the question I have.
Yeah, you can go ahead with your question.
Right, the fact you mentioned is related to the question I have.
But that means you've heard the fact.
Well, okay, ma'am. My question is, how do you, as you mentioned, the recording through samples and recording, how new is this complex vocal mechanism in the leaf population, the green population?
Oh, how new? Actually, we don't have historical recordings for this species. So this species was recorded since Robin started studying this bird in about 2002 he started studying this bird, but I think recordings are probably from like 2008 or something like that. Yeah.
But you mentioned that these vocal mechanisms are fairly uncommon in the green population, right?
Yes, they are uncommon.
So since they are uncommon, we can say that they are relatively new, right? No?
No, it's not the same thing. It's a proportion is lesser. The proportion of songs, proportion of presence of complex vocal mechanisms is lesser. It's not absent.
But since it's
So we don't know what came first. It's like chicken and the egg question. What came where first?
What, ma'am?
What came where first, we will never know.
But I was just saying, since it's a small proportion, the chances are
It's new, sure, but we'll have to check of how the populations were established there, which we have no idea of as of right now. If that is what you were hinting to.
Okay.
Alright, yeah, thanks for joining in, everyone. Going to close this. I had another slide regarding this bird song hero. So if any of you, I'm going to put this in the slides. If you want to like test your ability to learn bird songs, this is like a cool game that you can play. Listen to the songs, try and memorize them, and then look at the spectrogram and try and guess which bird it belongs to. So yeah, do check this up. It's developed by Cornell Lab. Alright, see you all next week. Yeah. Bye.